This obviously is Dahlia merckii. And these were sown on the 19th of February. We grew 150. They went to the nursery and they went before they're really looking good in the garden. It's like taking candy off a baby. The dianthus that you're talking about, Elizabethan pink, I went to Jimmy Blake's 2019 and it was growing just as you come into the garden, it was growing over the wall. He couldn't even remember the name of it. I said, oh, but it's the best dianthus. So I took some cuttings. They went in a Sainsbury's carrier bag with a load of other cuttings, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, they were in the back of the car for 5 days. Just with a Sainsbury's carrier bag with a knot tied on the top of it. Nearly everything rooted that we had in this bag.
When we first started the garden here in the late 70s, we used to grow masses of Hebes because they're such a good coastal plant. We didn't have that much protection in those days. And that, as you know, the emergent buds of a Hebe are enclosed with the leaves so they're protected until they're ready to burst forth. And I remember Christopher Lloyd of Great Dixter grew quite a lot of Hebes in those days too, and lots of our name varieties came from him. But they seem to be a plant that's gone out of fashion. I think they're going to come back, you know.
Yeah, and I think it's like all these things. You know, I used to have it in for mahoney when I first started gardening, but you can't. You know, we strike a plant off with one sort of specimen, and you know the car park Hebes that are used.
That's why.
It is. It's because we get stigmas over plants and they become fashionable because they get a broad brush stroke. I grew a lovely one. In fact, the first one I got was Hebe hulkeana.
Yeah.
Which is a wonderful plant, but there's an even better, which I think is better, is cross fairfieldii, which is hulkeana crossed with Lavordiana. And I don't think anybody grows Lavordiana. And it's so much more refined. In fact, I've got a lot of cuttings that are just struck in the propagator, but it's a fab plant, and you get these lovely lilac-y flowers that are really, you know, they are Veronicas now, aren't they? They're the Veronica little flowers, and it's a really, you've got to keep it clipped back after it flowers and keep it sort of small. It's a rockery, I don't know, tumbling over the wall sort of plant.
And it's one of those plants that you have to look at it. I mean, I don't know what makes a plant like that, but you know, suddenly you get a plant, it's got presence. You have to look at it. It draws your attention. And this Hebe hulkeana cross is that.
Absolutely that. Do you grow a fairfieldii?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it's a cracking plant. And actually, I've seen various. I mean, this is another thing. I went to. It was a Kent Alpine Garden Show, Sutton Valence, 4 years ago, and in the foyer as you go through to where they've got people selling plants, and there was a little table of a few people that brought their own plants, and there was a chap there. Anyway, I bought it for £1 in a 7 centimetre pot. It was a little cutting that had struck it. I said, "Oh, is that like hulkeana?" He said, "Oh, no, it's completely different. It's fairfield." I said, "Oh, it looks like it." Anyway, it turns out that one of the parents is, but I got it for £1 in a 7 centimetre pot. It's on the rockery at Yorkgate on the front corner, and it steals the show when it's in flower. Yeah. It's now a lovely little plant now, and I've taken cuttings from that plant and propped it for myself. But it is just, and that's another little, you know, wonderful Alpine Garden Show, and I picked it up for £1, and it's one of my favourite plants.
I love those stands. I love those stalls. It's at Alan's Plant Fairs. It's the Hardy Plant Society little stand, and you sort of peer around all the pots. What treasures am I going to get? And they're all marked by coloured labels, and you look up, like, is it a yellow label, a green label, an orange label? Because they're going to get as pricey as £2 or £3 each.
You're right. Got Bergenia ciliata. There's a wonderful at our local Hardy Plant Society in West Yorkshire. That's my sort of group that I go to. They have this plant auction, and people take loads of plants in, all different stuff. I got Bergenia ciliata for 20p. I was like, I stood up, I was like, why is nobody else bidding for this plant? Come on, 20p.
Yeah, I can beat that actually, because I went to our local auction many years ago now, 25 years ago probably, and there was a big carpet, and we needed a big carpet at the time. And it just came up for sale at the end of the auction. Nobody wanted it. Nobody bid for it. And I got it for £2.
For a carpet?
And it was a 12x9 carpet. So
I love a deal.
I folded it up, got it in the car, got it home, put it on the lawn, scrubbed it like mad, scrubbed it again and again, I think, if I remember correctly, and it came up beautifully.
Yeah. It's interesting that this. I'm just going to turn into a tight Yorkshireman now. We've been buying a few bits for the nursery from auction. Like, there's been various closing down auctions. There's a few local landscapers have shut down, so we've been getting some absolute absolute bargains. And well, these are things that we paid too much for, but we went to this one auction. There was an old school like cast iron Mexican hat pig feeder, you know, the ones that you see like as an old farmyard. And I really wanted it. And Laura saw this tin bath that she wants to have cold baths and ice baths or whatever, which I want as a planter. And we went through the list of all these things that we bought loads of bits and bobs for dressing the nursery and wire for fencing and all sorts of stuff that'll be useful. But we both wanted these things. So we decided, we sat down before the evening, it was closed bids online. So we put all the bids in and that was it. We decided how much our maximums were for everything. Anyway, we both sneaked on separately and upped our bids for the Mexican pig. And I said, I'm sure we didn't say that much for the tin bath. And she said, well, I thought we didn't think we bid that much for the Mexican hat. I said, well, I might have just dumped it a little bit. Anyway, we got them both and the pigs are happily eating out of them now and Laura happily sits in the bath. So everyone's a winner.
Yeah, when I knew you were bidding for that bath, I immediately thought it was going to be a fabulous planter. I can't believe she wants to have ice baths, but it is worth.
It is going to be a planter.
She might not know it yet, but
I'm going to do a bit of a little. I mean, hopefully, she's probably going to watch this and then she'll be saying, "No, I'm going to be having a bath in it." But yeah, I love growing Cyperus from seed, Apicifera, and I want to do a bit of a water planting with Azolla and Cyperus and a few bits like that. A bit of an annual water display. But yeah,
that's brilliant. I don't think anybody's doing that. It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few. I've seen they were doing it at Dufferin. We're doing bits in corner ponds, but yeah, we'll have a bit of a play, and it's just bits that I've picked up from various people. There's odd people doing bits and bobs, but it's just about having fun, isn't it? And
yes.
Yeah, and you're saving it from the ice bath as well, which is a kindness. So. Yeah,
it's not good, is it? Right. Right. Another dairy plant. Wait, what?
Hey.
It was a dairy. So, you'll probably think this is Cambridge Blue. So Derry sells the seed for Salvia patens giant form, which has got the true electric blue flowers, and it's a tall plant. Good stems. Obviously, you can get a Guanajuato, which is obviously that lovely one, but that's got brittle stems. The giant form that you get from seed from Derry comes true. Also, I thought it came true. Grows to 3 or 4 foot. Wonderful plant. Anyway, last year we had the sort of the Cambridge Blue form. So this is like a giant Cambridge Blue that we've grown, and it's standing at about 3 foot at the minute and flowering like mad. We're going to collect seed off it, and hopefully we'll have lots of this. So when you grow in the standard patens and the standard Cambridge Blue, they both come true from seed, as you'll know. So I'm hoping that this is going to be, and I'll give it back to, if it does come true, then I'll give it back to Derry, and I'll let Derry sell the seed from it, because it's come from her stock. But really good tall 3-4 foot.
I've grown that this year, and I can tell you that the seed is variable, the colour.
Is it?
I've got one plant that colour and one plant, there's only 2 that have flowered so far, and I haven't got that many because there's only 5 seeds in the packet.
It's 5 seeds in the packet, yeah.
Yeah. And I think I treated myself to 4 packets, so I haven't got that many plants, but 2 have flowered, and one is the colour that you're holding there, and the other one is the darker blue.
Oh, that's interesting. So we got the seed a couple of years ago. I just got 1 packet, and I grew the 5, I think 3 germinated, and then we collected our own seed last year.
Yeah.
So we collected our own seed and sown.
But they don't produce that much seed, Ben, do they?
They don't. They're a buggy. You've really got to. I mean, you can see the spent.
Yeah.
Those of you that are watching the YouTube version, but the little spent calyxes, and there's usually 2 seeds at the base if they're viable. But you've really got to have a search through, and you've really got to let them go completely. You need to let them go brown, and they need to go right. They need to dry and go fully sort of dormant and dead before you collect the seed. And later in the summer, rather than deadheading the plants, we'll relieve it and try and. But yeah, you're right. They don't produce master seed.
No.
But interestingly, I think this year might prove, because of the heat.
Yeah.
Atrocyanea, which we've talked about before on the podcast. 2018, when we had that really hot summer, it produced seed for me, and quite a bit of seed. And there was the odd seedling in the ground, and we collected lots of it. And I've got that sort of avenue that's now coming into fruition in the car park. That was all grown from seed. And it flowers much earlier in a pot, which I've found. So I've got some big pots full of it, and I've got one at home. And I'm hoping that with this heat that we've had, that we might get the seed again. But again, not loads of seed, but you've really got to go through and.
That's Salvia patens giant form. I did wonder whether we could do it from cuttings very early on, like you do. I mean, because they have tubers, the root and which like Dahlia really, but modified. If they produce shoots, could you cull some of those shoots for cutting? Do you think?
Absolutely. Well, we've done that. We've got some for sale this year at Yorkgate, and Mark's taken several. Just young.
Yeah.
But they're just softwood cuttings.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're just as easy as normal salvias.
That Salvia patens giant form is becoming a bit of a cult plant on this podcast. It's getting a little bit of love. I think it was Seagate, Chris Davey at Seagate.
Chris gave me one as well, and that has gone in my pot as well. So I'm growing 2 big pots of it this year because I want to make sure that I keep the tubers. So I've made 2 big pots, and I think I've got about 3 or 4 plants left over for Thunder, if you're listening.
Yeah, it's worth it. I mean. It's such a buy. I mean, both the sky blue of the Cambridge blue and the electric blue. I mean, it's just a colour that you don't really get lots of, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, whatever colour they come out, it doesn't really matter. They are absolutely fabulous, regardless.
Exactly, and they grow well. Right. Yeah. Next plant. I've got another salvia, and I've just brought this one as a bit of this. You'll know this one. This is oxyphora, bright pink or peachy pink.
Hairy flowers.
Yes, they are. They are hairy flowers. In fact, it's covered in ants.
There must be some aphids there somewhere.
Lovely sap. But anyway, that's a lovely. We grow that. It's actually got a good leaf. In fact, the leaf. I'm going to take a bit of the leaf off. The leaf looks a bit like a Bamaria.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really great foliage. I'd never have thought of it looking like a Bamaria until just now. But yeah. Bamaria-like leaf, again, really good foliage. We grow it in a pot. We take a few cuttings, but we overwinter a bigger plant, and that's really, really good one. So I've got a few plants. I'm going to move on.
Incidentally, if people want more Bamarias in their life and they didn't check out Philip Ostenbrink's episode, there were several Bamarias mentioned in there, as you'd expect from the author of The Jungle Garden.
Next one. I'm not a massive fan of Monardas, but I like this one. This is Jacob Cline.
Proper punk hairdo on this one.
It is. It's quite a rich red. So it's got like it's got red bracts, and it's got these lovely sort of lipsticky red flowers that come off the top like a punk's hairdo. Yeah, you're right. But the reason why I brought this one on is because it handles quite a lot of shade, and it gets quite tall. Mark, nursery manager, was growing it in his own garden, and it grew sort of 7 foot in his garden. Climbing through the shrubs, and he said, it takes a lot of shade, so we've put it at the back of the hot border, which is quite shady. And he brought some offsets in, just some little divisions. We've popped it at the back, and it's at the minute it's flowering, and it's a good 4 foot, heading towards 5 foot. And it handles the sun as well. We've put it on both sides, some in the sun, some in the shade, but it's really tolerated and it's flowered well in the shade. So it's a really good plant, good tall flower. Flowering, it started a few weeks ago, so sort of mid-July. So yeah, really good Monarda.
I think that's one plant that we wouldn't have success with here because of our dryness, because I think they do like moisture.
They like a little bit. It's a fairly dry spot where it's in. This one's probably worth a try with it, because you could probably give it a bit more moisture in the shade rather than in the sun.
True.
Or maybe in the tropical garden, something like that.
Yeah, good idea.
But yeah, it's anyway, I really like it, and it's a pretty new plant to me, but it's one that I'll grow. It's one that I'll grow at home. I'm not mad on red flowers, but I like this one.
There was a Monarda, and I cannot remember the name of it, that you bought last year at your plant fair, Alan, and it was such a fantastic Alan Gray moment, because we stood there looking at it together, and then you just bought the whole tray of all of them. Apart from the one that Jane Ann Walton had snaffled before you could buy the whole tray. You were the only 2 people.
There is a tale to that, because the person I bought it off actually came to the plant fair this year, and they said, that Monarda you bought last year, I forgot to tell you it wasn't hardy. Did it come through the winter? And I said, no, it didn't. And they presented me with 15 plants because they felt guilty about it.
Wow.
Obviously, you've probably talked about this a lot, one that's used a lot by designers.
I do love this.
I wanted to talk about the prop of it, and I've tried to get it in different. Oh, no, I've got a shield beetle. I've got it. It's in its different forms, but I'm just going to get the one. Obviously, they look wonderful when they're in bud. So that tight bud with sort of like they've got little hairs on, and then produce these sort of like droopy pink flowers. And you see it a lot now. It's growing a lot, and we grow it in the sand garden.
So Echinacea pallida, is that?
Sorry, Echinacea. I should say the name of it. Echinacea pallida. Wonderful plant. Likes it in quite, you can handle it quite dry and arid. But the reason why I bring it on, and these are from that plant. Out the back, we've got some sands. We play a lot around with propagating the sand and growing in the sand, especially things like Eryngiums and the Echinacea. And I think it was last February I was taking root cuttings of Eryngiums and the Echinacea, and I had loads of odds and ends. So we put them in the sand, cutting mix that we put in the greenhouse, and they go on the little heat bench just to give them a bit of a head start. But I literally drilled with my finger. I drilled some lines in the sand bed outside, and I just threw all the odds and ends of the cuttings. Not different sizes, different thicknesses, and most of them came up. And this was in February, and the same. I did Eryngium bourgatii and alpinum, and they were the same. They all came up. So you got these little rows. And then this year, it's produced probably the best Echinacea pallida that we've got in the garden. So I left them where they were. They've got blooming great roots on that can be taken more cuttings from, but haphazard way of taking root cuttings, chop, throw them in. Didn't look at the depth, it was maybe an inch below the surface, and it just shows that sometimes we really will go to an extraordinary length to create the settings that we think are right for propagating plants, but going forward, I'm going to be chopping it up fairly haphazardly, and I'm going to be chucking it in the sand.
Do you do that with Romneas too?
We've only got one Romnea here, but that again, I mean, you've got a big garden, so you can let it go wild because it's a big plant, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It can run a bit.
But I've never propped a Romnea, no.
I've got so many requests for Romneas this year. We haven't had that many plants, and so it's on my list to actually do root cuttings of that next spring, very early.
Very early in.
Yeah, late winter, really.
Yeah. So it's a good, and that's part of the reason why going solo as well is I just want to play around and.
You want all of it?
Yeah, just see when I can pop in different plants. Right, I've not got many plants left.
And also with the Echinaceas, I mean, I feel like in the past, many episodes ago, we've slightly poo-pooed Echinaceas because they, particularly with all the breeding, they can be a bit miffy, some of the many multicolored varieties. But I got completely wooed by one in a garden centre a few years ago, and blow me down, it gets better every year. I never thought it would come back. I bought it because it was all the sunset shades, and I can't remember the name of it, but every year it gets better. So I feel like maybe I need to be less hard on all the new cultivars. Some of them might be worthy after all, and particularly
I think part of the reason for some of the Echinaceas not being a success, I think, is the fact that in England we have wet and we have cold and we have hot, and then we have wet and cold and hot and wet and cold and hot. In their home of North America prairie regions, I mean, winters are harsh, yes, but they sit under snow for quite a long time. Then they have the melt, and the next day virtually it's summer. So we don't have this horrible wet period. It goes from being covered with snow, nice and moist, and then suddenly the sunshine is there, and that is why they're not so successful in this country, I think. So
maybe the sand is the answer.
Yeah, the sand's been a revelation. Althea cannabina.
Oh yeah, lovely.
Kate Mallet, again, you'll know that these bulk up quite well. They grow from quite a tight base, and they produce many more stems each year. And you can grow this from seed. But when I planted the iris, you call it the iris border, but these Altheas follow later on. And I put them in 9 centimeters, and with the idea that they'd look good in the first year, and then each year we'd take a few out, thin them out, and prop from them. And I actually divided them into really small. So take out the sort of where the rosette of the plant is, where the crown, where it comes out of the ground, and split them down in sort of individual sort of segments. So I mean, individual pieces as they are, because they come out of the ground in sort of the single. They come from the ground in the single stem, and then they branch from the stem with the flowers. And it's worked very well. And I've propped lots, and they got grown on and then potted on into 1 litre long toms for sale. But I just think it's a wonderful plant, and it's not one you see lots of. Probably grows very well in your part of the world, I imagine.
Yeah, it does actually, and I think it's one of the, because it's such a light and airy plant, you can disobey all the rules and you can plant it at the front of a border and it doesn't obscure your view, but you get a close up of that lovely flower. And it adds another dimension to the whole sort of look of a border, I think, because you've got this nice sort of curtain of foliage which you can see through. It's a bit like Granny's lace curtains, but not quite so heavy.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the bed that I've got it in is very narrow, really narrow. You know, it's only probably just over 1 metre deep, and we've got them at the front and towards the back, and it's a slope border towards the path, and you can get. I mean, they're eye height. You can get within inches of it from when you're walking on the path. So yeah, really useful plant, and like you say, it's one of these area plants that goes anywhere in the border. So yeah, another one of my faves. One left. So this is in a 1.5 litre pot. It is Silene Confetti. Again, we'll give it a second to cut the flower off because it's too big. This was grown from seed in March, and I was trying to knock it out of its pot earlier, and you know that lovely sort of fibrous roots that Silene and Lignus get. I'm going to knock it out and show you. Yeah, that sort of that film that you get around. Those of you that are just listening, it's sort of like I don't know how to describe it. It's like a mesh. It's like a fine mesh.
Yeah.
It doesn't root like a lot of things. They all root the same, these sticky catch flies. But yeah, I got it for Pan Global again a few years ago, and collected the seed, and it grows into, I mean, there's 8 stems on that plant, and it's wonderful, creamy white flowers. Grows like stink. I don't know how hard it is, but it's so. So there's a few that I planted in the pillar garden, and actually some of them faded away. But whether that was because they're wet or because I doubt it's the hardness, because we didn't get much of a winter. But anyway, it's so easy from seed that I've grown lots of it, and as I say, they filled a 1.5 litre pot from the sowing in March. So yeah, really good plant. Lovely
spike of these. Is it kind of glaucous-y as well?
It is. It's got like a downy stem, like green with like white down on it, and then the buds are like a lime green, and the flowers are a creamy white.
Now, anybody that grows plant flowers should grow that, because it's a great mixer.
Yes,
I mean, it's new, and to me it's new. It's unusual. It makes a great mixer, or a filler in bunches of flowers, I think, and it looks like, to me, like, just hold it up a bit higher, Ben, because it looks as if it might stand up on its own very well.
Absolutely. I mean, that stem there, you know, because they come right from the base again. It's 2 foot. Yeah. It'd be great. I mean, it'd be great to try it to cut flower. Yeah.
So suddenly an Alstroemeria seems to have just appeared.
No, Alstroemeria Indian summer. Don't grow loads of Alstroemerias, but there's a few that might be Mathloma. But yeah, Alstroemeria, dark again. Lovely dark foliage. It's still green, but it's got sort of dark veining, and it looks visibly dark. It's dark when it comes out, and then they go greener as they get taller. And it's got this wonderful striped peach, yellow, and red flower. Again, likes it hot. We grow it in the hot water, and I've moved it into a different location for propping for the nursery here. It's in a really, really hot, sunny spot, and it is just booming with flowers. It's done much better than where it is in the garden, bulking up. Obviously, it's a PBR plant. It's quite expensive to buy. I'm sure it'll come down once PBR ends, but for ages, I was like, why is it so expensive? Even in plus, it's expensive.
Yeah, it is.
But it's because it's PBR, and it's a great plant. It's really one of the better Alstroemerias. I imagine you grow this, Alan.
Yeah, I do. Oh, quite a lot of it actually.
Even I grow it, and I think mine was about $12.50, and I sort of thought, oh, it's a bit of money, but I did really want it, and I only planned to grow one Alstroemeria, so I thought it was worth the investment, and it has been. I've only had it for a year or so, but it's been brilliant. I don't regret the $12.50 at all.
and obviously you can still prop it yourself. They're easy to propagate, but they're just, obviously you're not allowed to propagate them for sale unless you pay for your.
How do you propagate then, Ben?
We do them from, they're almost, I want to call them basal divisions.
Like thongs, the roots like thongs.
Yeah, they produce quite a lot from the base, and you can sort of dig down with your trap. You can take a sort of a piece off with a bit of root on it.
Yeah.
So I suppose it's a division of sorts.
Yes.
It's like a basal offshoot.
I would call it a careful division, Ben.
A careful division. But yeah, and they bulk up really quickly, and then you can just sort of take them off as they come up in when they shoot in the spring's the best time to do them.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure I have room for more, but maybe I will just try and squeeze them in somewhere in the ever diminishing planting opportunities in my tiny, tiny suburban garden. There's always room somewhere.
That's all my plants.
Well, I have to say thank you again for giving us a brilliant selection of plants. I mean, you always do this. Ben Preston, plantsman extraordinaire, dare I say. I can't wait for this nursery to open.
About that.
Oh, well, I do. I can't wait for this nursery to open, because I mean, if this has been a taster of what you're going to grow, the kind of plants that you're going to grow, you're going to be successful, Ben, beyond belief. And wish you and Laura the great success with Cliff Bank.
No, thank you very much. No, it's it's a great adventure, and I'm all for big change. You know, to be honest with you, we decided if the nursery didn't come off, that we were going to cycle from Patagonia to Alaska and just do something completely different. You know, I was just up for a massive change. You know, we both did cycle touring, just throw it in the air and just go for something new. And I think, you know, like, your guys taught me a lot about just living life to the full and doing things and being happy. And I've been very, very happy here. But I'm well ready for a change. The nursery is the thing. We're going to be there for a long, long time, and it will evolve and get better. And I'm sure it'll be.
And you never know, you might just fit Patagonia in somewhere. Because I'm just thinking the plant opportunities there.
The nice thing is we're not going to open. We're not going to open the winter. We're going to open April to October. So I think give us a chance to get to South America and back to New Zealand. And I'm very keen to go and spend more time in New Zealand looking at plants, and really sort of home in on some of the things that I want to grow and the conditions. And because there's certain areas that are very similar climate to what they are in the north of England there. So you get the extremes of further north, you get hotter, and then you get down sort of southwest of the South Island, and it's really, you know, they get some of the highest rainfall in the world. But there's lots of in between, and they get real mixed climates and things. So back to New Zealand, definitely, over to South America. Going on a lovely trip to South Africa in September.
Oh, great! That'll be fun.
Tom training here, and Andy, who's down at Wildside, and
that'll be their springtime.
Yeah, we're going to the Macqualand, Western Cape, Newtsville, that sort of area. We're going to go to Kirsten Bosch for a day, so cannot wait. It's going to be a fab trip up.
Oh, that's going to be amazing. You're going to get a serious amount of FLOMO from that trip. So we might need to just do a FLOMO episode with you after you've been there.
There's always FLOMO.
Well, there is. If incidentally, segue nicely into the next section of the podcast, if you haven't ever listened to one of these before, where have you been? Well, it's episode 90. But FLOMO is a feeling I'm sure you get, a fear of missing out about a flower or a plant. I've got a ton of it now, as usual, at the end of a podcast, loads and loads of plants I want to try and squeeze in. And of course, after my trip to York Gate, I mean, they're just going through the photos on my phone, and there were so many things. I did bring back that lovely heuchera. Is it Bronze Beauty?
Bronze Beauty, great.
And the Coppery but Plurum as well, which I was super psyched to add to my garden. So they were FLOMOs no more after I'd been. I am having a bit of an impatiens year, and I've currently got the Niamensis, the little Congo cockatoo, pride of place on my patio table with all of its lovely little parrot flowers, which I sit at my kitchen table doing my work and just look up sort of every few minutes and see my little cockatoos out the window and have a little smile to myself. But you have, and I do know this from East Ruston, but it reminded me of Kilimanjaro, how exquisite those flowers are.
Amazing plant.
You picked it. We were looking around that lovely tropical bit with all your tree ferns, and you sort of just picked it so that I could examine it up close. And yeah, it reminded me of what an amazingly intricate, beautiful flower that is.
You just want to eat. If you like the thing you want to eat, it's like a fruit pastel or something. It's that lovely red and orange, flushed yellow, tiny, wonderful. It's wonderful plant. I mean, that's one that Jack introduced to me, and he grows lots of patens. But yeah, I'm sure we can sort out the cutting or two.
Going very well. Actually, I should just want to ask about your tree ferns, because I think you had like a drip system into your tree ferns. Am I right?
Yeah, we did. So we we put a sort of a drip feed. So every single tree fern's got its own little drip feed system. And you can't see it because it's a black pipe. It goes up the back of the tree fern and it just nestles nicely in the crown, and it goes on overnight. And I think that constant, the stem's like a sponge, the trunk's like a sponge, and they want to be moist. You often see lovely lush tree ferns at the top, and they've got quite a dry stem. They want to be soaked through. They want to be damp, and we turn it on a night, and it just drips all night. And obviously they produce their fronds for next year, the year before. So it's all about that water that you get in, and the drip feed's been a revelation really, because the fronds are just absolutely monstrous. They're wonderful.
I've got given a tiny baby tree fern for my birthday, and so I immediately thought back to York Gate and like, right, that is obviously important. If I want it to be happy, I need to channel Ben and his drip watering system. Well,
in fact, on that note, I'm going off topic again. Apparently, so I found 3 old 6.5 foot, 7 foot tree fern trunks at the nursery, just like in a load of debris. And Jack reckons, or he's told me, that you can plant a little tree fern in the top of an old trunk, and then they'll root right through eventually. So I don't know if that's a cheap way of getting a really big tree fern, but I'm going to give it a go.
What a great idea!
He's convinced that because they root right, because it's actually dead is the trunk, and they root all the way through the centre and put the roots out underneath. So I don't know if you've ever done it, if you know about that, Alan.
No, but I tell you what I have done. I've got an old sort of what's the male fern called? I've got a dead tree fern with a male fern growing out of the top of the trunk.
It's not filix-mas, is it?
Yeah, Dryopteris filix-mas.
I bet that looks lovely.
It does actually. I mean, it just did it. I didn't do it. It just sort of grew there from a spore, I suppose.
Some of the older ones get huge. I mean, we found a few Dryopteris sort of just on the peripheries of the garden that have clearly been there for, they've probably been there for 60 or 70 years.
Yeah.
And they're like little tree ferns.
They are.
The emerging croziers are absolutely, they're like knuckles like they are on a tree fern. And we've moved a few into the garden around the stream sides, and they look amazing.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about my Flomo. Dahlia, I'm going to know that it's that Dahlia merckii again. Dahlia merckii alba. I've been after it for ages, and I know you got one off Derek. Have you still got yours?
I've still got mine, yeah, but I mean, it's for some reason it's a very weak thing.
It's a fickle plant, so I hear. And I went to Derry's a few weeks ago, and she said, "Oh, we did skinny cutting, so I've not got any for sale." And then I went to buy one online at a nursery, and anyway, I put it in the basket and paid for it, and you had to buy other plants to fill up the basket. It was expensive. It was 25 quid. Anyway, I got a message saying, "Oh, we've not got that plant. Do you want a replacement?" I mean, I put all these other plants in the basket just so I could get the Dahlia merckii alba. Anyway, so I'm still after it. So even if it's a root, I will get it next spring, hopefully, and I'll see if we can grow it well. Might be in a pot with some feed, but yeah, it's a lovely plant.
So I think it's time for Alan Gray's Flomo, and I think you're spoiled for choice this week.
No, not. I know exactly what I want from
everything.
Well, I think I may have that. I put Bergenia Ashtonii as one of my, my Flomos, but I think I may have a plant of this. I don't know where the heck I got it from, and it hasn't got a label, so I'm not absolutely sure. But it has all the attributes of a Bergenia, and it looked very much like the plant that Ben held up and talked about so well. So I'm not going to have that as my Flomo, but I am going to have Dahlia Hadrian summer wine, because I think that is fantastic. And if I don't know how or when I shall be able to get that. I've got to have Rosa Eskimo in my garden because I'm a great fan of single roses, and you know, the health on that foliage, it's repeat flowering. I mean, repeat flowering is always good with roses. So you don't just have this month and then nothing. You have a few later on. And a plant that surprised me, I didn't think I was going to like it so much, but Silene Confetti. I just thought, whoa, look at this. This is a demure little darling that she doesn't look, she's not showy, she's not flamboyant. She's the one that stands in the background, but she's the one that gets the guy.
That's the one. Well, I'm sure we can. I'm going to be getting some Rosa Eskimo, so you'll have to let me know how many you want, and I'll order some as well.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like 10 if you can get them for me, please.
10. Yeah, well, I'm going to get bare root, so
yeah.
10.
Wonderful.
Let me know. And when people go to East Ruston and see all these wonderful Rosa Eskimos that they're coveting, they'll know exactly where they came from.
Yeah, and hopefully they'll go out to Cliff Bank and buy some.
Yeah. And it's going to be super easy to find you guys because you're just outside sort of that Harrogate area, and you're right on a road. You're not like tucked away down loads of tiny roads, so people have to get their sat nav on. You're going to be really easy to just drive up to.
Hopefully, yeah. It's I'll be having signs outside, but it's nice because the site, it is on quite a busy road where the entrance is, but the site moves away quite. It's a narrow site that's sort of slopes southeast facing back to the house. So it's a narrow site, so you can get away from the road quite quickly. It's a good little spot. We've been very, very happy there so far, and it's about the process of doing it. That's the bit that we're enjoying. And I think I've maybe fallen foul of it in the past, wanting to get something to be wonderful, but we're just enjoying doing it.
Particularly that greenhouse that is the stuff that dreams are made of.
Well, interestingly, we had a bit of a chat last night about the greenhouse.
Don't tell me you're going to pull it down.
We're not going to pull it down. We've been working out, because there's a separate power source that's currently disconnected that's separate to the house, and it's a long, it's 200 meters up to the greenhouse, and we've been working out how the working area is going to be in terms of the prop area and the potting area. We might actually, because I was going to put a polytunnel up just for doing little courses. We think next year that we might actually have it for workshops. Which it means that we won't have to completely, because it's going to cost quite a lot of money to renovate it, and to put electricity in there. So we're going to actually have some, and it's you've been in it, it's just such a wonderful rustic space. It's what's grown there before, and it's got the staging for a wonderful table down the middle. So we think we're going to have a bit of a banquet in September, a bit of a launch for friends, and it's just the most wonderful, amazing setting, this derelict greenhouse. I think we're going to actually do the workshops in there next year. So watch this space. It'd be fun just to go there and have lunch there. I mean, it's just lovely. Yeah,
that was certainly one of my favourite parts of there are many favourite parts, but that was one of the best. Ben, you have been wonderful. It has been an absolute treat. All of the plants, all of the fun, and all of the promise for the future. I'm so excited for you. And for us.
Very much. Yeah.
And you'll have to come back exclusively with your Cliff Bank Nursery hat on next time.
I will. When I've managed to grow some plants.
Until next time, the best of luck with it all, and happy gardening.
Lots of love to Ben and Laura.
Thank you very much. Ciao. Bye.
Hairy flowers.
Yes, they are. They are hairy flowers. In fact, it's covered in ants. There's ants crawling all over the desk now. Oh well. I wanted to talk about the prop of it, and I've tried to get it in. Oh no, I've got a shield beetle. Yeah, it's Sorry, there's a little knock on the door then. I need. Just go in that drawer there. Sorry, we need a HDMI cable. Oh, the ant's just about to go across the camera. Oh, no, it's not. It's going over the back of the laptop. There's ants crawling everywhere. Right. No worries. Cheers, mate. Sorry. will come again. Hopefully you can edit some of that out. Hold on 2 seconds. The laptop's going to die. I'm just going to grab the cable. It'll be 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's
This has been a nightmare today, hasn't it?
I'm going to have some great bloopers though.